How to tune your string instrument without knowing anything about music. First things first, we need to understand how sound works. In a previous video, I dove into the history around hertz, the unit of frequency. If you're interested in knowing everything about it, feel free to give that video a watch after this one. Sound waves are, to put it simply, vibrations of air. When something makes a sound, like when you speak, pluck a string, or blow into a wind instrument, the source of the sound vibrates. This is easiest to visualize with a string instrument. When you pluck or draw a bow across a stringed instrument, the string wiggles back and forth very quickly. With your naked eye, you can't see that the string is vibrating into the air particles. Those air particles vibrate and hit one another until eventually they reach the air near your ears. When the air hits your eardrums send signals to your brain which you perceive as sound. The vibrations in the air can be measured with instrument tuners or your electronic devices if you have the right apps installed. I'll give you some suggestions on apps that you could use in just a moment. In the same way that we measure distances using centimeters, inches, and feet, we can also measure the vibrations in the air using hertz. Instead of measuring a distance, we can measure vibrations of air within 1 second. One vibration of air within a second is represented as 1 hertz. 500 vibrations of air in 1 second is represented as 500 hertz. The lower the number, the lower the sound. The higher the number, the higher the sound. Just like how you need a ruler to measure an inch, you need an electronic device to measure hertz. So what you will need before you attempt to tune the instrument is either an instrument tuner or an app that you can install on your phone or device. If you're looking for a free app, I would recommend the Tuner T1 or the Fine Tuner Chromatic Tuner apps. I personally use the Fine Tuner Chromatic Tuner app because I have an iPhone, but for today's demonstration, I'll be using the Tuner T1 app because it can be downloaded for both Android and Apple devices. After you download the app from the App Store, open it up, and you'll start seeing it go haywire. This is a visual representation of the measurements it's picking up. In the top left-hand corner, you will see a number with the word hertz underneath of it. Look familiar? In a minute, you're going to try and tune your instrument using that number and a chart that I'll give to you. We'll come back to this app soon, but we need to talk about the anatomy of your instrument next. I'll be directing you to turn things, twist things, and the do's and don'ts of tuning. If you're not careful, you could very easily end up with a broken string. In the case that you do break a string, you'll need to buy a new string, which could end up getting really expensive, and attempt to restring it all by yourself. Or you could pay someone at your nearest instrument store to do it for you. Either way, it's a lot faster to not break it in the first place. I'll probably make another video in the far future covering how to restring a stringed instrument, but for now, we're just going to focus on tuning the strings that are already on the instrument. Here is a violin, viola, and a cello. The anatomy of the violin and viola are basically the same with the cello and the bass. Unfortunately for me, I don't have a bass at my apartment right now, but I'll be able to explain it using my cello and some editing later on. On all string instruments, you will have the following parts: the scroll, which is located at the top of the instrument. If you use your imagination, it kind of looks like a paper scroll rolled up. The tuning pegs, used to make big tuning adjustments. The neck, that supports the strings. The body, which is the largest part, it's actually hollow, and its main function is to amplify the sound of the strings. The fingerboard, where the players put their fingers. The bridge, that holds the strings up. And lastly, the tailpiece that connects the strings to the end of the instrument. The violin and the viola both have chin rests and shoulder rests that help solidify the player's posture while they play. And the cello and the bass have end pins that keep their instrument planted firmly in place when they play. You can find fine tuners connected to the tailpiece on violins, violas, and cellos. Fine tuners are used to make small tuning adjustments. Most of the time, you'll be using these fine tuners instead of the tuning pegs to tune your instrument. Due to the size of the bass, it doesn't have tuning pegs like the other instruments, or fine tuners. It uses a tuning machine that includes gears to make tuning adjustments. If you hold your instrument facing towards you and imagine the fine tuners as clocks, it'll be easy to remember which way to turn them. If you turn them clockwise, the string will get tighter, resulting in a higher sound. If you turn them counterclockwise, the string will get looser, resulting in a lower sound. You can only turn the fine tuner so much in one direction before they don't turn anymore or come completely off. In that situation, you'll have to use the tuning pegs to make big adjustments and then come back to the fine tuners to make the smaller adjustments. With the instrument facing you, the lowest and the thickest string will be on the left side. From left to right, the strings get thinner, allowing for the string to make a higher sound. Each string has to be tightened to a specific tightness measured in hertz. If we think in terms of hertz when we tune, it'll be easier to figure out if we need to tighten or loosen the strings. On your screen, you should see the frequencies that your instrument should be tuned to. Feel free to screenshot this chart for future reference. The lowest number of the 4 strings is the thickest string, and the highest is the thinnest string. Make sure that you do not go above these numbers, as you can easily snap and break the strings. The single letters above the numbers are the names of the strings. The violin strings from lowest to highest are G, D, A, E. The violas and cellos are C, G, D, A, and the basses are E, A, D, G. If you're attempting to tune new strings, or you haven't tuned your instrument in a while, the instrument will go out of tune by itself quite quickly, and you'll have to retune it again. Let's get out our tuning app and see if we can't tune these strings. When tuning, you can use your bow to make a consistent sound, or gently pluck the strings. If you pluck them hard, your tuning device might give you an inaccurate reading. Now that all of that has been explained, let's try and tune our first string. We traditionally start off by tuning our A string. Why? Because all of the string instruments have an A string, and it's easier if we all start off by tuning together. For violin and violas, your goal is to try and get your A string to match 440 Hz. Cellos are aiming for 220 Hz, and the bass is aiming for 55 Hz. Before you turn any tuners, just play your A string by itself. What number is your tuner telling you it currently is? We're all going to have different answers, but you will all fall into one of 3 categories. Either your number is lower than your goal, higher than your goal, or it matches your goal. If it matches, great, you don't have to do anything. If it is lower, it needs to be tightened. Remember, if you tighten it past the goal number, there's an increasing chance that the string will break and snap. Keep tightening it until the numbers match. On this specific app, the moving line will end up in the green zone. Don't stop there though. Make sure that the moving line is as close to the white line in the middle as possible. If your number is higher than your goal, you're going to need to loosen it past the goal number and then tighten it until the numbers match. Again, keep making small adjustments until the moving line is basically on top of the white line in the middle. Some of you that haven't tuned your instrument in a while will realize that using the fine tuners just isn't enough. You've either tightened it so much that you can't turn it anymore, or you've loosened it so much that the fine tuner came out. This means that you're going to have to resort to using the tuning pegs at the top of the instrument. This part can be scary for some people, but if you follow my directions and are really careful, you shouldn't have any problems. For this next part, I would suggest listening first and then replaying this part of the video afterwards. First, before you touch your tuning peg, loosen your fine tuner as much as possible. If it comes out, tighten it back in just enough so that it doesn't fall out on its own. Next, listen carefully. Our goal is to loosen the string, but if you turn it in the wrong direction, the string will snap. These tuning pegs are meant for making big adjustments, so even if you think you're not turning them that much, it could mean the difference between snapping them and completely loosening them. The quickest way to figure out which way you need to turn them is by looking at how the string is coiled on the peg. Hold the instrument so that the body is facing towards you. If the string is coming up and over the peg, you need to turn it towards you. If it is going down and under the peg, you need to turn it away from you. You don't have to turn it that much at all, just enough so that you relieve the pressure. Do not let go of the peg, or you're going to have a whole new problem on your hands. From here, very slowly, simultaneously press in and turn the peg in the opposite direction from when you loosened it. Continuously pluck the string at the same time. If you don't press it in while you turn, the tuning peg won't stay in place. Your goal is to try and get as close to the goal number as possible without going over. If you go over by accident, just loosen the tuning peg and try again. When it is close, go back to the fine tuner and tighten it in until the numbers match. All you need to do now is repeat that process with the other 3 strings. This is the order that most orchestras tune their strings in schools. Your goal is to eventually be able to tune without an electronic tuner. I wish you the best of luck with tuning, and until next time, remember that the best way to learn something is by teaching it. Ja, matane.